Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Grab your gear, Chaos Kids. We're going in. I'm Naomi.
Oh, I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. What gear? What are we going into?
That's all you get. No context.
Oh, great. I love it.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Jesus.
It's all good.
You're in a state today, sister.
Mm-hmm. It's all right. It's
all
all good.
week, I think.
Mm-hmm. You should get a yink, I think.
What?
That's a Dr. Seuss. If you have a lot of ink, then you should get a yink, I think.
Not familiar with that one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what
I'm going to take your word for it.
No, don't take my word. Take Dr. Seuss's word.
Okay.
Oh my God. Hi, sister.
What's going on, sister? Jesus.
I'm just in the thick of it over here. This is like the last room standing in this house. So
I was like, yeah, from here it looks like nothing's changed.
Oh, a lot has changed.
Do the Chaos Kids know? Did we talk about this on the podcast?
That I'm moving?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember if we did.
I don't know. It's
been a whirlwind.
It's been rough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's been rough. Mm-hmm. Massive downsizing.
Oh, yeah. Does that mean you got rid of stuff, or did you get a storage unit?
Well, Michael has a storage unit that he built on his dad's property.
Oh, right.
And a lot of stuff is going there, which is tough for me. I'm anti-store things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you also really expanded your
inventory
collection of, exactly.
My trees.
Because of the size of the McMansion you've been living in.
It's not a McMansion. It's a house that's well endowed. Anyway, I mean, this is all first world problems. So
sure. Mm-hmm. But moving sucks. It's very stressful.
It's so stressful. I'm so tired. My body hurts.
I know. I'm going to be there in a couple of days to help you with some of this. Yeah, you're not alone, sis. You're not alone.
Thank you.
We've got you.
Thank you.
Are you drinking today?
I'm drinking water because right after this, I get to take another carload up to my new place. So,
and we don't drink and drive, Chaos Kids.
Never.
Not even a sip.
Nope. That's the rule. Not even a sip. What about you? You got like a ginger ale or something?
Nope, I've just got my water today. I'm trying to be a little healthier so that I'm not so exhausted. I'm still, I'm firmly in the grips of trying to combat the amorphous, nebulous fatigue that comes with perimenopause and the brain fog and the whatever. And so, I'm trying to have a healthy diet and move more and sleep better and take my supplements and, all that kind of shit. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, I love that journey for you.
And a new skin regimen. It's just started, so you can't really tell yet.
I love all that. Good for you.
Yeah, that's what's going on with me.
Well, that makes one of us. Oh. It's okay. Do we have anything for the good of the order before we dive in?
No. We always say at the end of the episode, but just a reminder, you guys, we don't make any money. So if you... Sorry, finances are coming up for me too. If you really enjoy our content and you want to be enabling us to continue making good content for you, and you've been around for a while maybe, and you thought about it, now's a good time. Now's a good time to go join the Patreon. It's $5 a month. You get a bonus episode every month. We put out the new episodes every week, a day early for the Chaos Kids Club members. And every once in a while, we have a virtual wine night. We hang out and you can chit chat with us live. So it's a good time.
It is a good time.
We'd love to have you. So anyway, that's my thing for
that's your PSA?
Good of the order. That's my PSA for the good of the order. So
right.
I'm actually really here to hear you tell me some bummer ass fucking murder or something that's gonna
is a bummer,
ruin my day. So bring it.
All right. I'm going to tell you about Tiffany Pugh. Okay. So we're starting out in East Point, Georgia, which is an upscale suburb of Atlanta.
Okay.
And it is November 23rd, 2014. It's the very early morning hours, and Andrew Pugh calls 911 and reported that his home had been broken into and his wife, Tiffany, has been killed.
Oh,
We're going right in.
okay.
So,
unlikely, but okay, sir. Your wife has been killed in a burglary at your house. Right. Sure.
So Andrew was a nightclub DJ, and he said that he had just finished his shift when he was alerted that his home security system was going off. He got a call from ADT that someone broke in.
I'm sorry. He's a nightclub DJ?
Yeah, we'll get into that. So he had left work when he got this notification, drove to his house, called 911. Officers tell him, stay outside and wait. And he's like panicking. He says both of his children are inside.
Okay.
And when officers get there, they go inside. They find his wife, Tiffany, deceased in a bed in the downstairs bedroom with a gunshot wound to her head. Her 2-year-old was in bed with her, but unharmed. I know. The 2-year-old was crying and like trying to wake up his mom.
Oh my God.
So both kids are brought outside to be with their dad. Neither of them were injured. So officers find the gate to the backyard was open when they go like around to the back of the home. And they also see an open window with the screen taken out. There was also a side door to the house that was left open, which appeared to be how the suspect exited the home.
Okay.
The bullet holes in the bedroom show that the first shot fired was missed, like they missed her. Oh my God, so scary. And it went through the headboard, through the bedroom wall, and was outside in the backyard.
Okay.
The second shot hit her in the chest, and the third shot, which was likely the fatal shot, was the shot to her head. The trajectory showed that the first missed shot was fired from inside the bedroom doorway, and then the next two were like at point blank range. So like they stepped in closer. It just gives me the creeps to be sleeping and yeah. So there's nothing missing from the home. Everything looks as it should.
There's nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Yeah. There's no evidence of a sexual assault. It was just straight up an execution.
Of the DJ's wife.
Of the DJ's wife. Yeah.
Okay. This is weird.
Yeah. The shell casings were taken from the home. There's no murder weapon. There's no shoe prints. Like there's nothing.
Okay.
So Tiffany was only 30 years old. And just 5 months prior to this, she lost her mom to pneumonia.
Oh.
I know.
I
know. That's how, sorry, side note, that's how Val Kilmer died recently. Or
was pneumonia?
Yeah, R.I.P. Val Kilmer.
He had also had cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't looking so good.
He was not well. No, he was not well.
So Tiffany's dad, Tommy, says that Tiffany was the kind of kid that every dad dreams of. She was fun-loving and very driven to succeed. She moved out to Atlanta originally to attend Clark University, and it was during her senior year that she met and fell in love with Andre Pugh.
Okay.
Tiffany graduated from Clark University with a degree in business and started a job at Delta Airlines. She was originally a customer service rep, but was promoted to manager just 2 years before she was killed.
Okay.
Andre was pretty well known in the area. He was a DJ and went by the name DJ Awesome.
Stop it.
I was embarrassed saying that. Yeah. So Atlanta has a pretty robust like night scene, you know? So, you know, he's kind of locally, I don't know, famous, whatever. So the couple were married on Valentine's Day in 2009, and not too long after they had their 2 kiddos.
Okay.
They lived in an area that had like really high-end homes. It was really safe. There was no indication that anything was wrong or that anyone would want to hurt her, like nothing, right?
Right.
According to the autopsy, she was sound asleep when she was killed.
I mean, that's a blessing, I suppose.
Yeah. So either she didn't wake up to the missed shot or they were in such close succession that, because that would be the scary part, right? If that woke her up and then she knew, oh God.
Yeah.
So there's no defensive wounds, nothing. She was totally asleep. Because they had the home security system, they had cameras inside and outside of the home. So of course, that's the first thing they're going to look at is to start reviewing this footage, right?
Yeah.
And they see on the surveillance camera for outside a dark colored car pulling up to the home just minutes before the alarm was triggered. But it doesn't pick up the license plate number and it doesn't get a shot of the driver getting out of the car.
Okay.
And even though there are cameras inside of the house, whoever went into the house was out of the view of all of the cameras. So police are thinking that whoever this was knew exactly what the layout was.
Where the cameras were. Yeah.
Exactly. So they're like, we need to talk to DJ Awesome about what's going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they ask him to walk them through the hours leading up to when, Tiffany was killed. And he said he was working at Club Onyx that night. He left the club when he got the call from ADT. And initially he wasn't super concerned. He said that he told the ADT dispatch to turn off the alarm so it doesn't wake the kids, assuming that it was just a false alarm, which I guess happens a lot. But also this is like the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You'd like an alarm during the day or something is like, whatever, it happens, but
right. Like a dog or a bird or the paper boy, who knows, right?
Yeah. The middle of the night, just turn that off.
It's fine.
But he wasn't concerned. So he was just a short drive away at Club Onyx and he said he would go check it out himself. While he was en route, he said he tried calling Tiffany 3 times, but she didn't answer.
Mm-hmm.
He said that when he got to his house, it was really dark and he saw the side gate open. So he called his boss, Cliff, and asked him to come meet him at the house because he was like spooked to go in. Why we're not calling the police? Not so sure.
Okay.
So Andre, DJ Awesome, went in once Cliff got there. He said he called Tiffany's name and when she didn't answer, he opened the bedroom door and saw that she was in bed, but she wasn't moving when he called her name. And it was too dark for him to see that there was blood or anything like that. He thought maybe she was having some kind of medical issue, like something. But either way, it freaked him out. So he went back outside and called 911.
I'm sorry. He didn't see blood. Mm-hmm. She wasn't responding to him when he called for her.
Mm-hmm.
She may have been having some sort of medical issue, which would imply that she might need first aid.
Mm-hmm.
Like CPR.
Mm-hmm.
And his response is to go outside and call 911 rather than go to her and, I don't know, check her pulse.
Mm-hmm. And also, if he's scared enough that there's somebody in there that harmed her, he runs outside and doesn't collect his two
kids. And he doesn't see his 2-year-old is in the bed with her and he just leaves the 2-year-old in the bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With his wife who's possibly having a medical emergency and or while there's an intruder in their home.
Correct.
Okay, this guy is not awesome. This is what we call a misnomer. And not in the cute nickname way, but in the actual use of the word. Mm-hmm. He is not awesome.
He is not awesome.
I am revoking his DJ name right now.
You heard that, everybody. It's DJ Awesome has been revoked. Naomi said so. So the downstairs room where Tiffany was found was the guest room, not the couple's primary bedroom. And Andre said that she sleeps in the guest room every Saturday so that when Andre comes home in the very early morning hours after DJing, they don't disturb each other.
Why doesn't he sleep downstairs in the guest room? This does not make sense.
I don't know.
Okay.
So ADT is able to provide detailed information about the alarm that night. So part of their alarm package included glass breaking detection, and it went off indicating that the living room window and the window in the guest room where Tiffany was sleeping had been broken or opened, even though neither window was open or broken.
Okay.
It was concluded that the glass breaking trigger was it can be set off by a loud noise, like a gunshot.
Ah.
And so that's what set the alarm off.
Okay.
So detectives interview DJ Not Awesome's boss, Cliff. And Cliff confirms that Andre did call him and ask him to come to his house. And Cliff said that he got there right before the police arrived. But when the police arrived, they were told to stay outside. So he didn't really have much to offer in terms of like what he saw or,
Right.
Cell phone records also, oh, Amber. Oh, sure. There's too many S's in that sentence. And I have a slight lisp. So
Lisp.
yeah, it's a type 2 lisp Michael and I completed. I've acquired it somehow through poor management of myself. I'm not sure.
Type 2 lisp, grade B,
Yeah.
not grade A.
No. Oh my God. Okay. Cell phone records also show that this account of what Cliff is saying is accurate. Andre, because like that's where his phone was pinging at his house and then pinged, or not at his house, at his work. And then where he was at the time he said he was, they also do a gunpowder residue test and it comes back negative. So Andre was being a DJ where he said he was at the time that this happened, right?
Okay. I'm sure he was. Let's look at the bank records because.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Uh-huh. I have a feeling this was a paid job.
Okay. All right. We'll stick a pin in that.
Mm-hmm.
So while Andre is talking with the police, he tells them that earlier that year, another DJ that worked at Club Onyx was murdered on his doorsteps. So, fuck.
One door, more than one step. It's okay.
Doors. You know what? One stumps me sometimes is double down. Doubles down. Like if you're talking
Double downs.
Yeah, like if you're talking about the past tense of somebody who did a double down, is it, and then she doubles, what is it?
Doubled down.
Okay, well, okay. Plural is hard. So 10 months prior in January, William Fernanda Barr, who was known as DJ Nando, was gunned down at his home. It was the middle of the night, like ambush style, just like Tiffany, right after getting home from his shift, and it was still unsolved.
I'm sorry, this DJ was gunned down? What? Okay, Atlanta is a crazy town. I've heard this, but what is going on in Atlanta?
I don't know. It's like, is it like turf wars with DJs?
Right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I'll see you in the club.
Everybody in the club getting tipsy. Okay, so he was killed. That was unsolved. So now police are suspecting that maybe Andre was the intended victim that night. Maybe.
I mean, we've already established he's not awesome.
He's not. He pissed off somebody. So they get a copy of the case file in the killing of DJ Nando. There were no names in that file that matched any of the names that they're working with in Tiffany's case. And when they speak to a coworker of Andre's, she said that when she first met Andre, he was just like a regular family man. But as the club got more popular and the fame got to him, there were rumors that he would take women home from work with him. And they learned, of course, that Tiffany had heard about these rumors. Like this whole, like, we're so happy, we're so in love kind of thing that they had going on was not the case.
Oh, she didn't just sleep in that room on Saturday nights. She slept in that room every fucking night because fuck him. He's not awesome anymore.
There it is.
And we're almost done.
There it is. There it is. They sit down with Tiffany's family and they learn that this marriage was in turmoil. Her dad, Tommy, said that Tiffany had recently confided in him that she wanted out of her marriage. She told her dad that she had already told Andre that she wanted a divorce and that Andre didn't seem to be upset by it at all.
Except that paying spousal support or child support or something would hinder his DJ lifestyle or something. So
yeah. Or that she's a manager at Delta and he DJs once a week. Like I
what
think
do we?
maybe she has the money.
Oh,
Yeah.
the solution is always murder, kids. Don't forget.
God,
the solution to all your problems is to murder someone.
Divorce court sucks.
Just
criminal court for murder, no biggie.
No big. Way better.
Yeah. So they also learned that Andre was horrible with money and was having like serious financial problems at the time.
I'm so shocked by this information. The DJ is horrible with money.
Hey, listen, no shade to DJs.
Oh no, we're shading DJs, you guys.
Oh,
we're
okay.
shading DJs.
If it's just a Hobbs, then that's one thing. But like, oh my God. But Tiffany was super good with money, and she had all of the money. Like, yeah. If they had gotten a divorce, Andre would have lost everything. Like this upscale neighborhood that they're living in, all the things, right?
Although if she's not working, I don't know how he's going to be able to afford to keep that house without her. Unless there's a life insurance policy.
Right. Maybe there is. So Andre's alibi checks out according to his cell phone records. And he wasn't at home. But when they told Tommy all of this, Tommy asked the police, like, oh, did you check his second phone?
I'm sorry, what?
Tommy for the win. And yeah, investigators are like, what? Second phone. One of these days, I'm going to tell you a story.
You mean this phone?
I really want to stump you one of these days. I was 3 sentences in, and you're like, Andre sucks.
You have stumped me before.
And
It's happened. You've taken me on some wild ass rides.
Okay. But I also am concerned about how naive I am. Because when I was watching this episode, I was like, oh my God, it wasn't the husband. So what's going to happen? He was at the club. Everyone could vouch for that. Okay, so he has a second phone. So they go to Andre's house with a search warrant. They get the second phone. And on that second phone, they find a slew of evidence. They read the text messages between him and Tiffany, and it was clear that she was trying to leave him and he wasn't having it.
Yep.
They go over the interview with Andre's boss, Cliff, and they notice that he said something that didn't quite add up. So Cliff said that when Andre called him, he said, I just got a call from my alarm company and someone broke into my home through the basement. Will you meet me at the house? Okay. But the alarm company never said anything about someone going in through the basement.
Right.
The basement window was the one that was open in the backyard, only visible once you got to the house and looked at the fact that it was in the backyard. And Andre was en route when he made this call.
Also, ADT said it was the living room window and another window, the bedroom window or something.
And it was the glass shatter thing. Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly right. So he just outed himself. He's not very bright.
He's not awesome. He's a DJ with a shitty stage name.
Okay, so they need to figure out who Andre called upon to do this, right? They talk to the neighbors of Tiffany and Andre, and one of the neighbors also has an outside security camera, and their video shows 2 cars going by the home and then around the block and coming back at the around this time, right? They believe that one of the cars was Andre talking to whoever was in the other car, talking them through like their next move. Right. The video was too blurry to see anything about the color, make, or model, but they could see that one of the vehicles had a burnt out headlight on the driver's side. So they have footage of Andre coming home that morning. So they knew that the missing headlight car was not Andre's. It was somebody else's. So they decided to call every phone number that accessed the cell tower in the Pugh's neighborhood during that time. They collect all the numbers.
Oh.
We had another case where they did that, and I was like, I can't believe they can do that.
Well, yeah, it was the one where the gal called from the banks of the river right before
my God. her
Right?
stepdad lured her down there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that one was so awful.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily this is probably not a lot because it's like 3:00 in the morning. So every phone number that accessed that tower, they cross-reference those numbers against the numbers in both of Andre's phones, and they find a match to someone named Adrian.
Uh-huh.
Adrian was Andre's bestie.
Oh, well, who do you call when you need to murder your wife, move the bodies, whatever? You
Yeah,
call your
but
bestie.
this is gross. Adrian was the best man at their wedding. He is the godfather to their son, and he was a pallbearer at Tiffany's funeral.
Oh, God, what a piece of shit.
I cannot imagine.
No wonder they're besties. DJ piece of shit and best friend piece of shit.
I can't imagine Tiffany's family realizing that they had her murderer as that is fucking awful.
So gross.
That is so awful. So they head on over to Adrian's house to interview him, and they learn right away that his black Infiniti had the driver's side headlight out.
Uh-huh.
They ask Adrian where he was the night of the murder, and he lies.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But detectives are given the green light from the DA to arrest both men.
Oh, they have enough evidence.
Apparently.
Okay.
And immediately, Andre turns on Adrian.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Andre is such trash. He's such trash.
He's a garbage human. Yes. Uh-huh. He says that Adrian killed his wife because he was mad at Tiffany because she made a false accusation about him stealing her friend's money.
What?
Uh-huh.
He's just making shit up.
He is
pulling this shit right out of his ass.
Right out them biscuits. Right out them biscuits. But Adrian remains loyal and refuses to talk and refuses to testify against his best friend.
Does he know? Adrian, what is wrong? You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the two Joshes.
Yes. Double Josh.
To the bitter end, that guy
I know.
Was just loyal to that piece of shit.
I know. Sometimes it's every person for themselves. You know,
look here, we talk about spiritual principles a lot in recovery, and Christine was one of the people that made me understand that loyalty is not a spiritual principle, because a spiritual principle is true always, no matter what. And loyalty isn't always the right move. Sometimes in cases like this, loyalty is the wrong fucking move.
Interesting. That's good for me. We don't need to get on this isn't a therapy for Amber session, but loyalty is a big, big deal for me. And maybe I need to rethink that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that loyalty is bad or there isn't a place in the world or in your relationships for loyalty, but loyalty is not a foundational principle.
I see. I think I've made it a foundational principle.
Because it isn't always right. There will be times when my true principles need to override loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew, I needed that this week, sister.
You're so welcome.
Okay. All right. All right.
Sorry, Chaos Kids. We just had to have a moment, apparently.
Okay.
Loyal all the way to the end.
All the way to the end. Yep. So they're both charged with the murder of Tiffany. At trial, it's learned that Andre left the window open so that Adrian could go in.
Sure.
He provided Adrian the clear path through his own home to avoid cameras.
Right.
Told him which bedroom Tiffany would be sleeping in. But neither of them knew that the gunshot would trigger the alarm, which messed up the entire plan.
Right.
Both men were found guilty. Both were sentenced to life in prison. They are still investigating whether Andre and Adrian were involved in the murder of DJ Nando.
Oh, poor Nando.
Nando, yeah. And that is the murder of Tiffany Pugh. That fucking off. Like, why though?
Because this is how many times have we covered a case where literally the reason for the murder was to solve a perceived problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never understand the thought process that takes you to, well, the answer is to murder this person.
I know. And I'm glad that I don't understand that.
It's baffling to me. I mean, I was talking to somebody recently. We were talking about like battered woman syndrome or whatever. Like in a case like that, I can understand. Like I can understand the thought process to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand how that happens.
Mhm.
That as a solution to the problem, like that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
We can debate on whether or not it actually is the solution or if it's right or that we can debate. But like the how you got there, I get it. I totally get it. But in cases like this,
yeah,
where the option is murder or divorce, like
yeah, when it's for financial reasons or it's just like, really?
Yeah. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. I think it's crazy
that he got his friend involved. Like his bestie was like, you know what?
Sign
I like
me
this
up.
plan. Yeah, this is a good plan. This is a solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even understand how a person gets to a point like that was somebody at one point who was like your everything. Like I realize marriages fall apart and people aren't meant to be together, but I've never wished somebody dead that I used to love. My God.
I mean,
like,
I've never really. I exactly.
Like
I've never even wished ill on people that I'm not with anymore.
No, like how
I don't. I just want them to go away. Like I don't want bad things to happen.
For sure,
to
go
them.
away. For sure.
But like that's it. That's the end of my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. Oof.
Well, sister, that was a bummer.
Yeah,
it was a bummer, and thank you for that.
Do you have a palate cleanser?
Kind of.
That's a no.
Sort of. We're going to talk about Aaron Hedges.
Okay.
So Aaron Hedges was a lifetime resident of Bozeman, Montana, which is located near the southwest corner of the state and home to just over 53,000 people as of the 2020 census.
Okay.
And like many residents of that area, Aaron was a very experienced and skilled outdoorsman or as they say down under, bushman, who spent a lot of time out in the Montana wilderness hunting.
Every time I hear the word bushman, I think of somebody that needs to manscape. You know? I don't love it.
I mean, I do know. This also takes place in 2014. Same year as your story.
It was a rough year.
And Aaron is 38 years old, and he is spending most of his weekends in the mountains or on the prairies hunting wild game.
Okay.
On September 5th of that year, Aaron and his friends, Joe and Greg, head off to go hunting for 5 days in the Crazy Mountains. This mountain range, often referred to as the Crazies, is just over an hour north and mostly west of Bozeman. It's like an island mountain range that, while technically considered part of the Northern Rockies, is isolated from the rest of the Rockies. It's drier, it's less densely forested than other ranges, and because it's almost completely surrounded by private lands, and half of the range, like every alternate section, is in private hands, it's somewhat difficult to access, especially in the southern section where the highest peaks are located.
Okay.
The name Crazy Mountains is supposedly a shortened name from the name Crazy Woman Mountains, which is a nod to the original name the Crow tribe gave them after a woman went insane and lived in them when her family was killed in their attempt to settle west. Mm-hmm. The Crow people called them, I'm going to butcher this, but something like Awaksa'awipia, which translates roughly as ominous mountains, or even more roughly as crazy mountains. The Crow believed the Crazies had spiritual power and were believed to be unpredictable, and they often used these mountains for vision quests. So Aaron, Joe, and Greg are off on a Friday to go elk hunting, planning to return on the following Wednesday, September 10th. At the time, the weather in and around Bozeman was pretty mild, and there was no indication that the weather in the Crazies would be much worse. Of course, it would be colder and maybe windier up there, but no major weather events were forecasted for the next 5 days.
Okay.
The three drove up Cottonwood Bench Road and parked at the Ibex Trailhead and headed east, then north up Cottonwood Creek Trail to Trespass Trail. They also brought with them a pack horse and a mule.
This is sounding like Oregon Trail, but it's like 2014.
It's 2014.
Okay.
It seems that these men were not exactly familiar with how to use pack animals, and they were having trouble keeping control of them.
Sorry. Who just brings a mule when they're like, I've never brought a mule anywhere, but I'm just bringing a mule? What?
Right? Like,
Wow.
did they borrow the mule? I don't know. I don't know. So they headed north to Trespass Creek and rode between the 8,500-foot peak and the 7,000-foot creek location. And then about 2 miles from where they started, the mule freaked out and dropped a whole bunch of stuff down the hill.
Oh.
They couldn't recover all of it, and most of the gear that was lost was Aaron's. What was recovered of Aaron's was too much to put on the mule or the other horse, and Aaron was forced to carry all his stuff himself. According to Joe, from this point on, Aaron was generally pissed off. His sleeping bag and tent were amongst the lost gear in the mule incident. So Joe made the trek back to the trailer to grab some blankets, a tarp, and various items so Aaron could put together a makeshift tent and sleeping arrangements.
That's nice.
But because of this backtrack, the three men ended up spending the night at Trespass Creek, which was not nearly as far into the mountains as they had originally planned to make it before setting up camp the first night. The next morning, they kept going north, where they crossed over a pass into the Campfire Lake area, where they actually set up their campsite that would be their base of operations for the duration of their hunting expedition. There are conflicting narratives around this, as other reports suggest they actually planned to stay at Campfire for a night, and then Moose Lake for a night, and then Sunlight Lake for a night, and then head back. Either way, the plan had already shifted because of the issues on the first day, and it seems like no hunting was done on that second day, the 6th, Saturday. After making camp at Campfire Lake, Greg and Joe decided to go off the mountain to check out the area around them using binoculars, looking to see if they could spot any game and good locations for hunting. Aaron stayed at camp while they scouted the area, and when they came back, he told them their camping spot was terrible, there would be no good hunting there, and he was also in a mood because he had a new sight on his bow that was making it difficult for him to aim. Greg claims that Aaron couldn't even hit a target at as little as 10 yards with this new sight while he was practicing with it at the camp. To add to Aaron's irritation, he was not comfy in his makeshift sleeping arrangements and spent the night fitfully and restlessly.
God, this whole thing is going so bad for Aaron. God.
Joe and Greg slept just fine, however, and they were off to go out hunting the morning of the 7th around 4:30 a.m. They hiked a trail that headed west, and a couple hours later, around 6:30 a.m., they looked back down at their campsite with the binoculars and saw Aaron moving around. He told them he wasn't interested in hunting that day, he didn't have a good night's sleep, and he was going to head up to a cache that he had hidden up at Sunlight Lake. Joe and Greg actually had been with him when he set up that cache sometime on some prior trip to this one, so they knew where he was going because they had been there with him.
Right.
Aaron was going to grab a sleeping bag, a tent, and a wood stove so he could have a bit more comfort that night at camp.
Where's he grabbing that from?
From the cache.
Oh, okay.
CACHE.
Like geocaching.
He had a stash of stuff
that
that he had cached away up there on a trip before. So he had extra gear.
In my mind, I thought that he had gone geocaching and he's going to go retrieve some little painted rock or something.
No.
Okay.
He's got a stash of gear.
That's smart.
Okay. So Aaron was going to go grab this stuff, and the cache was about 7 miles away from Campfire Lake if you follow the creek up there directly, which would basically make it a day-long hike to get there and back, as long as you're moving at a pretty good pace. 14 miles in one day of hiking is a lot, especially if you're carrying a bunch of gear. And uneven terrain is much slower going than asphalt or sidewalk. Right. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for Joe and Greg to allow for the possibility that Aaron would actually stay at the cache that night and return the next day. Maybe. Aaron's friend Chris Bates said, quote, Aaron had good common sense. Aaron wasn't a dummy. He knows the area like the back of his hand, which means Aaron should have made it to Sunlight Lake and back to Joe and Greg without any issues.
Right.
He spent most weekends up in those mountains. There's no reason to think that in that hike to the cache and back that Aaron would get lost or take the wrong trail.
Right.
Aaron was carrying a Badlands backpack, some more clothes, a lighter, a bow, a 4.4 Magnum, water filters, Mountain House meal packs, and his cell phone. So he was pretty well equipped, at least for the day hike. And the three men had an agreement that they would check in with each other at noon and again when it began to get dark. Around noon or 1 p.m., Joe and Greg did contact Aaron, who responded at that time that he was all good.
Okay.
For this communication, the men were using FRS radios, which stands for Family Radio Service, and they were using the Garmin Rhino 120s, which, when on the FRS frequencies, has a range of about 2 miles. They also have an LED screen that shows you on GPS where the person you're talking to is, as long as it's within range.
Are these like really fancy walkie-talkies?
Basically.
Okay.
Aaron's location didn't make sense based on what we supposedly know about the events, as they were told to authorities after the fact. He supposedly said that he believed he was between Moose Lake and the turnoff for Sunlight Lakes, but that he also felt like he'd gone about 7 miles. The problem with that is that turnoff is only about 3 to 4 miles from Moose Lake, so he had definitely gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
Later that day, Joe and Greg ended up taking the same route as Aaron as they went searching for elk. They had contact with Aaron again, and the GPS showed that he was maybe a couple miles east of that fork by that point, so why didn't he recognize that? Aaron, knowing the area so well, should have known the landmarks, and even if his mental state had him a little fucked off, he should have known where he was in relation to that turnoff.
Right.
To Sunlight Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Around 4:30 p.m., Joe and Greg contacted Aaron again to tell him they had shot an elk and he should head back their way to help them with it. Aaron told him he wasn't really sure where he was, thinking he was miles away from where he was supposed to be, and that he didn't think he'd be making it back that night.
So during these conversations, are they like, dude, what do you mean you don't know where you are? That's so strange.
It gets stranger.
Okay.
So also, according to Greg and Joe, this communication with Aaron was a lower quality connection than they had earlier in the day, indicating that Aaron was further away from them at that time than he was when they spoke to him at midday.
Mm-hmm.
This does call into question the actual range of these FRS devices and how near or far Aaron was at either of these points of contact that Greg and Joe had with him that day.
Mm-hmm.
This would be the last contact anyone had with Aaron, 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, September 7th.
And this is the same day that he went to go find his cache, or the following day?
The same day. This is the day he went to go find the cache.
Wow. Okay.
Joe and Greg dealt with the elk they had shot, bagged it up in a game bag and hung it, and then headed back down around sundown to their campsite at Campfire Lake where they spent the night. Aaron was somewhere off in the wilderness, and they assumed he was going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
The following morning, Monday the 8th, Joe and Greg made their way back north of Moose Lake to Dead Horse Lakes, where they had shot that elk the day before. Apparently, they didn't make any attempt to get in touch with Aaron, even though they hadn't seen their friend in over 24 hours.
That's odd.
Mm-hmm. They gather up the elk, pack it down to Moose Lake where they camped for the night. Then they woke up the next morning, hauled it all down to Campfire Lake, spent their last night, the 9th, at Campfire Lake. And just as they had planned, Joe and Greg packed it all up on the Wednesday the 10th and made their way out of the Crazy Mountains. At no point in these days did they make any attempts to contact Aaron or authorities.
Yeah, no, that's super sus.
Yep. Once Joe and Greg got back to the trailhead and their vehicles, they took their phones off airplane mode, and that is when they received a text from Aaron, sent who knows when, that said, "I'll call you tonight." Greg replied to Aaron's group text, "Don't contact me until you're sober. You should have helped with the elk. Glad you're okay." This is the first indication in the relaying of events from Joe and Greg that there may have been more going on with Aaron on this trip than just the fact that he had that issue with his gear at the start.
Yeah.
In fact, everyone who knew Aaron knew that he was an alcoholic who was working towards recovery.
Mm-hmm.
He also had a prescription for a benzodiazepine to help him with his anxiety while he was going through withdrawal symptoms, and had been working to wean himself from alcohol. But it comes out later that Greg and Joe had brought alcohol on this hunting trip and been drinking during that time themselves.
Oh, that's nice.
Phone records would later show that the text Aaron sent went out on Tuesday at 8:35 p.m., which means at least at that time he still had cell phone service and battery life on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
After this text exchange, Greg calls Aaron's wife, Christine, and he asks her if Aaron is alive.
Is Aaron alive?
Uh-huh.
Not, is
strange.
Aaron home?
He didn't ask her if she'd heard from him or if he made it home. And like, how would she know better about Aaron's well-being back in Bozeman when Greg and Joe were the ones that Aaron was supposed to be with?
Yeah.
Christine tells Greg that she hasn't heard from Aaron, and he tells her to call search and rescue instead of calling himself, when he certainly could have led people to the area much quicker than Christine could.
Right. I don't like any of this.
A full search was launched the next morning, the 11th, at 7 a.m., including 2 horse teams, one heading north and one heading east. The one going north went to search up Sunlight Creek and then the Sunlight Trail up to Sunlight Lake to see where the cache was and to see if Aaron was there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, neither of these horse teams got too far because a massive snowstorm blew in overnight and dropped 1 to 2 feet of snow and the temps down to the teens, forcing them to turn back and halt the search.
Oh, God.
It just wasn't safe for the men or the horses to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
They were back at base camp by 5 p.m. on the 11th. That same day, though, a helicopter was able to drop 2 search and rescue peeps at Sunlight Lake to look for that cache. And they went to the exact coordinates given to them by Greg and Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Except the coordinates that were supposed to be the Sunlight Lake cache were actually about 10 miles away from where they were told it would be. But the physical description they were given did match, so they just assumed someone had made a mistake. They landed, searched the area anyway, and found nothing.
Right.
The documentation of the search is unclear on whether they searched the coordinates or Sunlight Lake, but it seems it was Sunlight Lake that they likely searched.
Okay.
2 military helicopters patrolled up the entire known course that the 3 men had taken over their 5-day trip, as well as Sunlight Lake, but visibility was pretty bad and they couldn't really see much. Mm-hmm. Greg and Joe's behavior would become big question marks once investigators started digging into them and their explanation of the events of the trip.
Yeah.
For one thing, was that radio contact on Sunday really the last time they spoke to Aaron? And then they went days without hearing from him or seeing him, and they just left?
Yeah. They just kept on their trip as normal and then just pieced out. They never...
Right. And they made no attempts themselves to find Aaron.
That doesn't make any sense.
And once they get back to cell service, they have someone over an hour away call search and rescue instead of calling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In their interview with investigators, they would say everyone had an understanding that on this trip, we are leaving on Wednesday.
I don't care if one of us is missing. I got things to do on Wednesday.
So they get back to the cars and both cars are there. So Aaron hasn't beat them down the mountain and left before them, and they just leave.
Fuck.
And they also said Aaron had been acting loopy and agitated, as if that was reason enough for them to ditch him.
Yeah, no.
This is also when Greg and Joe inform investigators about Aaron's alcohol abuse, something investigators had not known prior to this interview. They said Aaron drank a pint of Jack Daniels a day.
Oh, God.
And if that was true, and he was also taking benzos at the time, that would be very concerning for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But when investigators spoke with Aaron's doctor, she said the prescription she wrote him was meant to be stepped down over time. And by the time of this hunting trip, he would have been 2 weeks out from the start of that prescription and likely not really have any pills left at all at that point.
Yeah.
Additionally, even if he had some of those pills left, benzos are a sedative. So is alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Christine and Greg and Joe describing Aaron as agitated and uncoordinated as a result of his medication, it just doesn't track with how benzos work.
Right.
If he was agitated and uncoordinated, either the benzos weren't working or he wasn't taking them.
Right.
So while the initial search is happening that first day, Joe and Greg hiked up to the Sunlight Lake cache themselves, despite being told to stay out of the search area. Mm-hmm. Some suggest that they gave search and rescue bunk info on the cache so they could go up there and check out the cache themselves.
Right. That's what it sounds like.
They spent the night at the cache and apparently were seen by the helicopters and headed back out around noon the next day. That same day, the 12th, search and rescue did manage to locate the cache, probably after the helicopters saw where Joe and Greg were. Mm-hmm. Later that day, Joe and Greg were brought in for that interview. And while Joe seemed pretty distraught at what may have happened to Aaron, Greg seemed more just irritated. Both men thought Aaron was probably dead because of the weather and the fact that he didn't have the kind of gear that would have prepared him to survive that kind of storm. They also knew he never made it to the Sunlight Lake cache.
It was still there.
Joe actually began to cry a little bit during the interview, whereas Greg just went on about Aaron's lack of preparation. Greg also mentioned the exact kind of arrows Aaron was using, which were gold-tipped with 4-inch green and white fletching. And Joe was crying that Aaron's disappearance was his fault. Search and rescue did manage to find an elk carcass that had been dressed in exactly the way described by Greg and Joe, but that carcass was not where they said it was. In fact, it was a little bit to the west on private land. Which means since their licenses were for public land and they didn't ask permission from the owner of the ranch or the land there, this means that these men were actually poaching.
Ooh. Did they arrest them for poaching?
No.
Oh.
But this points to the reason why Greg and Joe's explanation of events didn't fully add up and seemed to be either not truthful or at the very least purposefully omitting information. Additionally, when search and rescue found the cache at Sunlight Lake, they found arrows matching the description Joe and Greg provided of the types of arrows that Aaron used. They also found arrows matching the type that Greg and Joe used. What was not found was any arrows of the type Aaron used at Moose Lake or Campfire Lake, which is especially odd because Greg had mentioned that Aaron was shooting arrows and they were missing and breaking on rocks, and not one broken arrow was found that belonged to Aaron at that campsite. There were other things that indicated that Greg and Joe were keeping things from authorities. They had told investigators that they had kept their phones on airplane mode the whole time they were in the mountains to preserve the battery life on their phones and only used their phones to take pictures. But when asked to see the pictures they took, Greg showed them one picture of himself putting some antlers and some bones into his pack. A shot that was close up enough as to not show anything in the background that might indicate where the photo was taken. Joe showed one deputy the group chat on his phone that the deputy was able to get pictures of, but it seemed like there was more responses in the chat below the portion that Joe showed him that the deputy didn't get to see.
Interesting.
When asked to see their GPS transmitters, it was strange to see that there were no markers on their units that would have told them where the lines were between private and public land. And the two were very vague about where they had actually killed and dressed the elk, which was also odd since these men knew that area so well. They should have been able to tell investigators exactly where that had happened.
Yeah.
All of this points to Greg and Joe knowing full well that their hunting activity had taken them onto private land. At the end of the interview, when asked if they would be willing to help further if needed, Greg refused to answer the question, and Joe said he needed to rest because he had been coughing up blood, something the deputies noted did not happen at all during the interview.
God. These guys suck.
Yeah. One deputy did track down a witness who claimed he had seen all three men on the Trespass Creek Trail at a time that they said they were not there, further contradicting Greg and Joe's story. All this added together led one of the officers to determine that Greg and Joe were, quote, actively withholding information or giving misinformation regarding their exact whereabouts during the trips, and that their phones and GPS data were important evidence. At this point in the investigation, many working on the case were suspicious that Greg and Joe may have had a direct hand in whatever happened to Aaron Hedges.
Yeah.
At the very least, it looked like the two men were covering something up. 4 days later, on the 16th, Joe was brought back in alone for a second interview and asked to tell his entire story from beginning to end without interruption, and they would just ask questions at the end.
Okay.
One of the officers asked Joe when he was done why they didn't search Sunlight Lake themselves. And Joe got teary-eyed again and said that he had thought Aaron may have made his way out already and there was nothing to find up there, that they should check the trailhead first. He did admit then that he had made a mistake in that decision. He also said that just in case they had left Aaron's slippers and some food at the Moose Lake camp, but Aaron had never been to the Moose Lake camp as far as any of them knew. By the next day, the 17th, now a week out from the first call to search and rescue to report Aaron missing, 10 days out from the supposed last communication anyone had with Aaron, the search area was expanded, believing that maybe Aaron had headed further east. Dogs had been brought in to assist in the search, which was now what is called a Type 2 grid search. This is classified as purposeful wandering. This is when you have searchers who are aware of like what kind of evidence need to be looked for, not just any disturbance. And they are aligned in a set of lanes and they just walk forward in concert. If somebody finds something, then they all stop.
Oh, okay.
This is typically like the method of last resort.
Yeah.
Right. Around 1 p.m., a short way off the main Sweetgrass Creek Trail, one of the teams located a 75-yard diameter area that was a little bit protected from the elements, and that is where they found 2 small campfires about 12 inches in diameter, as well as a pair of Gore-Tex hunting boots, a blue Camelback water pack, and a partially burnt carton of American Spirit cigarettes. They couldn't age the fires, so there was no way to know how long ago they had been lit. This discovery would refocus the search area, as this was a few miles east of the initial area where Aaron was last assumed to have been.
Yeah. Did he smoke American Spirit cigarettes?
I guess so.
Oh, okay.
They kept pushing on eastward in the search, following the creek with lanes along either side of the trail between the creek and the foot of the mountains. Nothing new was found, and with the lack of any new clues and the weather getting worse, by the 22nd of September, the search was ended. And by that time, there had been a total of 60 ground searches, 20 canine teams, and 2 helicopters involved in the search for Aaron.
Wow.
By March of 2015, 6 months after Aaron went missing, no trace of him or his remains had been found. And investigators brought Greg back in for another interview.
Yeah.
He reiterated the same thing he said before, making sure to include the fact that Aaron had been drinking on the trail, although back in September, Greg had said he didn't know if Aaron had alcohol with him. Joe and Greg had alcohol, but they claimed to be unsure if Aaron did. Greg also included details about how much Aaron was drinking, which he said was less than Aaron would normally drink on a hunting trip that long. He also said this made him think Aaron wasn't actually there to hunt, but rather to go to that Sunlight Lake cache on his own to wean himself off the alcohol and go through withdrawals alone in the woods.
Okay.
Greg did also express some degree of remorse by saying that he should never have allowed Aaron to go on the trip in the first place, given Aaron's mental state. He also made sure to tell investigators that Joe had in fact been coughing up blood all day on the 11th and 12th, but it had been him that insisted they check the Sunlight Lake cache. It was clear when they got there that Aaron had not been there, and they did not have time to hike out. So they spent a restless night where Greg listened to Joe cough all night while a military helicopter flew overhead.
Okay. Just needed to get that tidbit in.
This has all been real hard for Greg.
Yeah. Greg is the real victim here. God.
He claimed that in the morning, he found tracks he believed to be too small to be Aaron's, something he never mentioned back in September. Greg denied having any involvement in Aaron's death or any potential cover-up of what happened to Aaron. 3 months later, in June of 2015, Chris Rain and his father-in-law were repairing a fence on their ranch, Sweetgrass Ranch, when they came across a backpack, a bow, and some gear, and with them was an ID for Aaron Hedges.
Wow.
One of the things they found amongst the gear was Aaron's .44 Magnum, and it only had 3 live rounds in it, which suggests he either brought only a half-loaded revolver into the mountains with him, that he fired 3 shots and didn't reload, or that he ran out of ammunition and was down to his last 3 shots. Each of these scenarios raises questions. Why bring a half-loaded gun into the mountains?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Why not reload after using it? What would he be shooting at that would cause him to run out of ammo? There was also a prescription pill bottle with prescription drugs in it, which we're not sure what that prescription was, but we can probably assume it was the benzos, which meant that he had not finished his course. Was he taking them up in the mountain? Was he taking them while he was drinking? Was he drinking? We don't know.
Yeah.
We have Greg's word for it. All of this stuff on this ranch was found about 4 miles away from where the boots were found.
Wow.
He either stalked something a very long distance or was running away from something. The area was searched and nothing else was found. 12 months more would go by. And then in August 2016, almost 2 years after Aaron went missing, some ranch dudes on a dude ride came across a human skull. It was discovered on the Billy Creek Ranch property, not even a mile south of the location where Aaron's backpack and bow was found a year prior. 40 yards from where the skull was found, they found the rest of the remains along with a coat, a fleece pullover, and a Samsung cell phone and the waistband of a pair of men's underwear.
Oh.
The theory was that the reason the skull was found away from the rest of the body was because it had been buried underground by a bear. The body, that is. Mm-hmm. Bears will usually take whatever food they haven't eaten yet from a kill and bury it underground to preserve it and to keep it from other animals.
Okay.
The medical examiner did confirm via dental records that the remains did belong to Aaron Hedges. There was no evidence of injury, but there wasn't really evidence of anything because it was skeletal remains. So cause of death was listed as exposure. The thing that's crazy about both these locations is that the Sweetgrass Ranch is fully visible from both these locations.
Yeah.
Aaron would have been able to see the buildings of this ranch from these locations. He wasn't like lost in the middle of nowhere with no help to be found.
Right.
So the first time I ever heard about Aaron's case was on one of the Missing 411 movies.
Okay.
These are the missing stories covered by David Paulides, who is a former cop who now spends his time investigating mysterious disappearances in the wilderness that ultimately he is trying to chalk up to Sasquatch or aliens or something.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, the way he presents Aaron's disappearance, it all becomes so strange and unexplainable. The boots he left behind, the gear that's found right next to a ranch, the gun, the bow, abandoned. The backpack even had some food in it. Mm-hmm. And then his remains not more than a mile from the pack when he was right there next to civilization. But the further I went digging, the more I discovered there was definitely information that Paulides either left out on purpose or didn't know because he didn't get the info from official documents that others were able to obtain.
Mm-hmm.
For example, it turns out that it is very common for bow hunters to remove their boots and put on moccasins or tennis shoes when they are stalking an animal so they can get closer because it's more quiet. Oh. Bow hunting is a closer type of hunt than rifle hunting.
Interesting. Did he have moccasins or something with him up there? Do we know?
Well, he might have in his pack.
That's true. Okay.
I mean, he probably did if he was bow hunting.
Mm-hmm.
If this is standard operating procedure for bow hunters, he probably did have moccasins or tennis shoes in his pack.
Mm.
Paulides also left out the information about Aaron's alcoholism and the weirdness of Greg and Joe's behavior and explanations of things.
Mm-hmm.
Paulides also says that he does not include disappearances that may be voluntary or where there may be suicide involved. However, Aaron's own brother had stated that he was very worried about Aaron dying by suicide, and Aaron's disappearance was voluntary. Aaron told his friends he was walking off.
Mm-hmm.
All that said, based on the evidence and the location of Aaron's body and the state of his body, foul play was ruled out. Joe and Greg didn't kill their friend. What they were likely covering up was the fact that they were out there poaching, hunting elk on private property.
Right.
And it's possible and probable that Aaron was as well. That maybe he spotted an elk and followed it east. It does get weird, though. There's just a lot of unanswered questions. The fact that he knew this area so well, and there had only been one other missing person in the Crazies in like 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy area to get like lost in.
Right.
So it's possible he just missed the fork in the trail that very first day and never got to the cache and panicked and kept going and kept making bad decisions, I guess.
That's weird.
But the boots by the fires in that one spot would suggest he started tracking an elk, swapped to quieter shoes, and tracked it all the way to that dude ranch where his backpack and his bow was found. And then he encountered a bear? Well, it's not impossible he was mauled by a bear. It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So that's
so weird.
the mysterious death of Aaron Hedges. Like, we don't really know what happened to him.
That is so weird. But clearly, like, there was not a gunshot wound to his skull.
Nope.
Oh my God.
And it's interesting because he could have been mauled by a bear, but his bones had no indication that he had been clawed deep enough to hit bone.
That's what I was going to say. There's no indication of an injury like that. Oh my God. Those creep me out.
I know. It's weird. And it's especially weird because, like, even with alcoholism and mental health problems, right? He is an experienced hunter.
Mm-hmm.
He knows those mountains like the back of his hand. The notion that he just missed the turn to go to his cache is just really implausible to me.
Yeah. I always think that some, like, these kinds of things where, like, it almost sounds like he had some sort of episode where he was confused or You know what I mean? Like
it's
that's the
possible
part
that he eventually got caught in like the weather and had hypothermia.
Yeah,
And that can make you make bad decisions.
for sure.
But the snow didn't come until the night of the 10th.
Yeah, like what was he doing?
All those days. And like they didn't try to get into Greg and Joe owe us more because they're not telling us the whole fucking truth.
Agreed. It's not adding up.
No. That they talked to him Sunday night and then never tried to talk to him again?
Yeah. They're like, oh, he's just like having a moment in the wilderness. We're going to go home now. What?
Right.
I don't like it.
I don't care who you are or how you feel about anyone. You don't leave anybody in the wilderness without knowing that they're fine.
Yeah, totally.
You just don't.
No.
That is like hiking and hunting etiquette 101.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
So what the fuck?
I hate it.
What was he doing for 3 days?
I know. It's spooky. It gives me the chills. I don't like it.
It's spooky. It's spooky and weird.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thanks for that. That wasn't a palate cleanser at all.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It was a pivot though.
It was. It was a pivot. It was something. Oh my gosh, sister.
Well, we did it.
We sure
made
did.
it. Look at you. You're still doing all the things.
I'm doing all the things.
Doing all the things. I love
Mhm.
you so
Love
much.
you
I
so
can't
much.
wait to come help you.
Thank you.
Move some furniture on Saturday.
Thank you. Love
You guys go join the Patreon. Go give us a review. Help us. Help us entertain you.
That's right.
And more people than you.
Exactly. That's exactly
We love
right.
you.
Love you.
Let's grow the club. And holy shit, that was so fucking
Okay.
chaotic.
Yeah, it was. Goodbye.
Bye.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at Crime, Wine, and Chaos /Patreon. Cheers.
Sorry, we had to do the little bloop, 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 bloop anyway, but I still had my music going over here in the background. That would have been annoying.